Well, we'll continue to see this rather slow and sluggish step into the second half of spring and early summer, despite the fact that, 40 Celsius is achievable in southern Spain as early as Thursday, and that would set a new all time record for not just Spain, but also, I believe, Europe for the month of April. Thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. There is a lot going on, but before we get into the video, please share with your friends and family, and hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate your view and your support, of course. But yeah, temperatures yesterday was only a high of 5, 6, 7 Celsius at the very best across parts of Scotland that received 18 to 21 Celsius back last Monday. So the contrast between Monday, as in yesterday, and last Monday is rather stark indeed. Well over 10 Celsius cooler this Monday compared to last Monday, and temperatures across the board not much higher than 13 Celsius, and that was confined all the way to the south and southeast of England. Temperatures as low as 6.9 Celsius as far south as Sunnybridge. We had 10.4 Pershore, and only like 11, 10, 11, 12 Celsius in and around the Greater London area as well. So a distinctly cool feel, that's for sure. And this is the temperature normally for the last 3 days. So the last 72 hours, we've seen this temperature normally across the UK and indeed Ireland. Very different story across Iberia, and we'll look at that in just a wee second here. Cooler than average across Northern Europe, warmer than average in the areas that have seen a overall cooler than average April. And I think when all is said and done, we may wind up slightly below average in terms of the month of April for the British Isles. Warmer than average has been the mainstay across the north, but drier than average, thanks to an area of high pressure so strong between Scandinavia and Greenland. That high, of course, is now shifted over towards Greenland, allowing that northerly wind to come in and drop those temperatures so significantly. But of course, it's nothing exceptional. It's nothing really out of the ordinary for the time of the year. Believe it or not, late April snowfall is it happens every few years, and of course, temperatures below average is can happen at any time of the year. But of course, the most recent springs have been rather interesting actually when you actually look at what's been going on here. Let's have a quick look at a tweet that I retweeted just a couple of hours ago, and it's actually from Milik. I hope I pronounced that the right way, and I apologize if I don't. But this is a tweet here that's quite interesting. So on in 2018, Serbia had its warmest April since 1951. Belgrade, the warmest April since 1888. But the last 4 Aprils in a row have provided cooler than average conditions. And the reason why I'm showing that is because if you notice here that the majority of Aprils, or the majority of Europe, should I say, has been in fact colder than average and drier than average. And I do believe that is a consequence to not only sudden stratospheric warmings that take place during the second half of the winter, but also the La Nina. And it's quite interesting how we've seen a warmer than average April. I believe this was 2020 in southern portions of the UK and Ireland, as you can see here, France, but below average across Central and Eastern Europe, as you can see. But in the year 2021, it was a very, very chilly April across the board, including the UK. Ireland was average. In 2022, it was close to average for the British Isles. But look at how cool Europe was overall. And even going back to 21, you can see here that, or 2023, this is so far in April, and temperatures are average according to this NOAA data. And what will be interesting to see is when all is said and done, where we go, do we start to see those shades of blue encompassing parts of the UK that we have across the central swathe of Europe? But you notice really the last 4 Aprils as well as being predominantly drier than average, has also been cooler than average across the continent of Europe. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there's been so much focus about Spain potentially breaking an April record, Europe potentially breaking an April record as well. But when all is said and done, we're seeing a trend to kind of late, kind of early, mid, late spring being slightly trending on the cooler side of average, which is quite interesting, despite the fact that summers in the last 3-4 years has been predominantly warmer and drier than average. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with regards to this winter, or way later down the road, as well as the summer, because of course we know that the El Nino is very likely developing. It is developing now. It is likely to continue developing and maturing through the rest of spring, and particularly so into the summer season. And I'm going to be very, very interested to see the response to the very warm waters, which are at record levels both globally as well as the Atlantic, but also the response of the El Nino versus the sea surface temperatures being well above average in the vicinity of the UK and Europe. What response does that have on the continent? Do we see another scorcher of a summer, a very dry summer, another summer similar to last year, and indeed 2018, 1976, or like I've said before, and the kind of where I'm leaning towards is probably a warmer than average summer based on the sea surface temperatures and whatnot. But also, I would expect to see a bit of a flip around. Now, we may see a warmer, drier first half of the summer, and then with the El Nino becoming maturer and that feedback now starting to have a response to the global pattern, do we see a wetter, July and August and September? That's going to be, of course, the golden question. But I thought I would show you that in today's video because I always try to give you something a little bit different to take away with you, to think about, whether you're going about your business, whether you're at work and you've got time to be able to let your mind wander. I just thought I would, look at this and try and give you something, a different angle, so to speak, in terms of what to think about. But certainly it is interesting when you look at the last 3 days, very, very much below average. This is the month of April so far, and you can see here clinging on to warmer than average across the northwest, below average across much of England and Wales, average further north and across most of Ireland, Northern Ireland being kind of close to the average, and then of course Central Europe being colder than average. And certainly the upcoming 5 days still below average according to the GFS ensemble for the north and down the east coast, turning a little bit warmer than average across England and Wales, certainly central and western England, as well as Ireland and southern portions of Northern Ireland. Very warm compared to average, as you can see here, across Spain and Portugal, where we may see an all-time record as early as Thursday, but we'll wait and see what takes place. Now, the Van Julian oscillation firmly in phase 8. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I believe it's a consequence of the hangover of the SSW in mid-February versus the strong phase 8 of the MJO has been providing the most negative North Atlantic oscillation and Arctic oscillation since April of 1995. So this, of course, is the Arctic oscillation, very, very firmly negative, remains well below the average, as you can see here. Let's have a quick closer look to make it a little bit easier for you. And you can see here that it stays firmly negative towards the end of week 1 of May, which is quite interesting actually. The North Atlantic oscillation, as you can see here, is firmly negative as already explained. And you can see here that it maintains a negative all the way towards potentially the middle portion of May. Now, the reason why I'm showing you that, folks, is because if you look at the long term, this is the GFS 2-meter temperature anomaly chart here. And while some folks would maybe think the heat that's in Iberia is going to lift north and all of a sudden we're going to just flip to summer, not necessarily. Because if you play through this loop here, you notice that yes, it does warm up England, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. But notice here that as we continue to press through week 1 and into week 2, the below average is over a good swathe of Europe, with the exceptions of Iberia and southern France, starts to kind of back towards the UK and Ireland here. So average to below average looks to be the case, according to the GFS ensemble anyway, towards the 10th, 11th, 12th of May, which then means that the AO and the NAO isn't going back up into positive territory for any time soon, and therefore we're going to continue to delay the onset of more appreciable warmth. Now, that 21.2 looks as if we're not going to get above that for the remainder of the month, which means that this is the lowest April maximum, 21.2, the lowest April maximum since 2016. And it's going to take a wee while before we start to really see temperatures warming up. Now, if we look at the ECMWF, you can see here that we've got, of course, the very cold air running south over the country at the moment. It's encompassed the entire UK. If we look back at the temperatures for yesterday, of course, well below what they were the following Monday. These were the temperatures this morning. And look at this here, minus 7.4 at Tulloch Bridge, or also known as Furset, near Fort William. So that was a pretty cold start to the 25th of April. Minus 2.8 at Glasgow, minus 2.1 at Edinburgh, minus 5.3 at Estelmuir in Dumfries and Galloway. Western portions in Northern Ireland, minus 3, as you can see here at Castle Derg. We had a minus 5.1 at Shap. Temperatures down to minus 1 at Hereford, minus 1.8 at Pershore. And I believe, according to Dan, one of the tweets that I've seen anyway, we had daily record lows achieved in some parts of the South Midlands this morning. The date records going back to the 1950s, so that was actually the coldest 25th of April for some places in a good few decades, which is quite interesting, of course. But I find it very, very interesting how in recent Aprils it's been dry, which I believe has a lot to do with the La Nina, but it also cooler than average during the month of April, which I just find very, very fascinating indeed. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because the ECMWF, you can see here the buildup of heat across Iberia, but notice here that heat never truly manages to get properly into the British Isles. We have this resistance, this fight between north and south air masses, and it looks as if the cool overall is going to kind of win out. Now, you notice here the development of an area of low pressure. Let's look at the overview chart, and you can see here that this feature right here, enhancing longer spells of rain and heavy potent showers with sunshine. Of course, you get all that instability within the atmosphere, cooler aloft, strong warming at the surface, forces the air to rise all that much more quickly, and we get these intense downpours developing here. But this area of low pressure that crosses Wales and England, as per the latest run of the ECMWF anyway, essentially shuts the door to the oven that's building over Spain and Portugal, even southern France. It's this disturbed weather across the north of France, as well as across England and Wales, is stopping that heat from lifting north. And therefore, we're going to maintain a cooler theme. Go back to the 850 temperature profile here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Very, very warm air from 850 all the way down to the surface. We're going to be seeing upper 30s to around 40 Celsius, like I say, in the next couple of days. Very, very significant heat for this time of the year. But you notice here that the cold air tries to come back south once again, and we've got this real tug of war between warm subtropical air and Arctic air that continues to try and push south here. So it looks as if that negative AO, negative NAO, the hangover from the southern stratospheric warming, the phase 8 of the Manjulian oscillation is keeping spring at bay across the UK and Ireland, but of course it's all systems go further south. So quite the interesting battle in terms of the month of May. We'll wait and see what happens. I'm currently writing a May outlook, so stay tuned for that on marfieldandweather.com in the coming days. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.